Welcome to another slow descent into sleep. Tonight's story begins on a white horizon, endless, empty, where the wind carries no scent of wood smoke, because no tree has grown here for 1,000 miles. In this world of ice, survival meant learning a secret the rest of the world never needed: that snow itself could become shelter, that cold could be turned against cold, that the very thing that kills could also protect. A single blade of bone carves blocks from the drift, each piece fitted into a rising spiral, each curve closing tighter, until a dome of silence holds the family safe inside. No firewood burns here. Instead, warmth comes from the glow of seal oil, from the press of furs, from the breath of bodies held close in stillness. The Arctic night howls outside, but within snow walls there is quiet, there is survival, there is sleep. Let the wind fade for you, let the silence hold you, and if these quiet wanderings bring you comfort, you might consider subscribing or telling us where and when you're listening from. Now close your eyes and step into the snow house, where warmth was carved from the very cold itself. They carve it, they crawl inside it. It holds the heat like a hand. In the endless white expanse of the Arctic tundra, where the wind carries no scent of wood smoke, because no trees have grown for 1,000 miles in any direction, the people have learned something that the rest of the world never needed to know. They have learned that snow itself can become a house, that cold can protect against cold, that the very substance that kills can also shelter, if you understand its nature deeply enough, and if you move with the patience that comes from generations of surviving in a place where impatience means death. The man kneels in the snow as the afternoon light begins its slow fade into the long Arctic twilight. His breath creates small clouds that dissipate quickly in the dry, bitter air. Round him, the snow lies in drifts that have been shaped and reshaped by winds that blow across this landscape for days, without meeting any obstacle taller than a human being. This snow is not the wet, heavy snow of southern regions. This is a different substance, entirely dry, crystalline, each flake distinct and separate even after it has fallen, compressed by wind and time, into something that can bear weight, something that can be cut and shaped and fitted together like stones. He examines the snow beneath his feet, testing its density with the pressure of his knee, reading its texture the way another person might read words on a page. The snow here has the right consistency, packed firm by wind, but not so hard that it cannot be cut, not so soft that it will crumble. This snow has been waiting here for him, shaped by the same forces that have shaped his people's knowledge of how to live in this place, where survival depends on understanding that the environment itself contains all the materials necessary for shelter, if you know how to use them, with movements that are both deliberate and economical. He begins to cut blocks from the snow. The knife he uses is not made of metal, but of bone and ivory, materials that do not become brittle in extreme cold the way metal does. Each cut is precise, angled slightly inward so that the blocks will fit together in a spiral that grows upward and inward. creating a dome that will support its own weight. The blocks he cuts are not uniform rectangles, but carefully shaped trapezoids, each one slightly different from the last, because he understands that a perfect dome cannot be built from identical pieces as he works. Others gather round him, women and children, and an old man whose movements are slow, but whose eyes watch every cut, every placement with the attention of someone who has built 1,000 such shelters and knows that a single block placed incorrectly can mean the difference between warmth and death. They do not speak. The work itself is a form of communication, each person understanding their role without need for words. The woman who will tend the lamp gathers the smaller pieces of snow that break away from the cutting, packing them into cracks and gaps. The children drag the larger blocks into position. The old man examines each block before it is placed, running his fingers along its edges, testing its fit. The structure grows slowly, each block resting against the others in a precise geometry that distributes weight evenly throughout the dome. As the walls curve inward, the man must work from the inside, fitting each piece from below, understanding by touch and experience exactly how each block must be angled to maintain the structural integrity of the growing shelter. The temperature inside the incomplete dome is already noticeably warmer than outside, even though there is still a large opening at the top where the final blocks have not yet been placed. This is the ancient knowledge of the Thule people, carried forward through generations of Arctic winters, refined and perfected through centuries of nights when the wrong shelter meant freezing to death before dawn. The principles are simple, but the execution demands absolute precision. The snow blocks must be cut at exactly the right angle. They must be placed in exactly the right sequence. The spiral must rise at exactly the right rate, neither too steep nor too shallow, creating a dome that will not collapse under its own weight and will not allow the precious warm air inside to escape through gaps between the blocks. As the dome nears completion, the man fits the final blocks from inside, each piece carefully shaped to close the remaining opening at the top. The last block, the keystone that will hold the entire structure together, must be cut to fit the exact dimensions of the remaining gap. He measures it with his hands, cutting and trimming until it slides into place with the solid finality that means the shelter is complete, the warm air inside sealed away from the bitter cold outside. But the dome of snow blocks is only the beginning. The shelter must be finished from the inside, shaped and smoothed and prepared for the long night ahead. Using a smaller knife and his bare hands, the man smooths the interior walls, eliminating any irregularities that might allow cold air to pocket or warm air to escape. The surface of the interior walls must be slightly glazed, allowing any moisture from breathing to run down the walls rather than dripping from the ceiling onto the people sleeping below. While he works on the interior walls, the others prepare the floor. Snow is packed down and covered with a layer of small branches and twigs not for burning, for there is no wood here to burn, but for insulation, creating a barrier between the sleeping bodies and the snow beneath them. Over this layer of vegetation goes a layer of animal hides, caribou and seal and bear, furs that have been carefully prepared and preserved, skins that will provide both insulation and comfort during the long hours of sleep ahead. The entrance to the shelter is not a door, but a tunnel, cut downward into the snow and then back up into the interior of the dome. This design ensures that the warm air inside cannot flow out through the entrance, since warm air rises and the entrance is at the lowest point of the interior. Cold air from outside cannot flow in for the same reason. The tunnel entrance creates an air trap, a simple but effective system that maintains the temperature differential between inside and outside, without any need for a door that might be difficult to seal or might allow heat to escape each time it is opened. As darkness settles over the tundra outside, the family crawls through the tunnel entrance into their shelter. The interior is not warm by the standards of heated buildings, but it is perhaps 40 degrees warmer than the bitter cold outside. The body heat of several people in the enclosed space will raise the temperature further. Most importantly, there is no wind inside the dome. Wind is the great killer in the Arctic, stripping heat from the body faster than it can be generated. Inside the snow shelter, the air is still and gradually warming from their presence. The old man settles himself near the back of the shelter, farthest from the entrance where the air is warmest. The woman who tends the lamp positions herself where she can reach the small oil lamp that will provide the only light and the only additional heat throughout the night. The children arrange themselves between the adults, sharing warmth, their small bodies requiring less heat to maintain and benefiting from the warmth of the larger bodies around them. In the dim light that filters through the snow walls, the interior of the shelter takes on a blue-white glow that is both ethereal and comforting. The walls seem to glow with their own light, and the curved ceiling arches overhead like the inside of a shell or an egg. The space feels both intimate and protected, separate from the vast emptiness of the Arctic landscape outside. Here, surrounded by walls made of the same snow that outside could kill them within minutes, they are safe and relatively warm. The silence inside the shelter is profound, not the empty silence of a void, but the full silence of a space that holds sound close. Every small noise, the rustle of fur against fur, the quiet breathing of several people, the almost inaudible hiss of the oil lamp is contained and muffled by the snow walls. Outside, the wind may be howling across the tundra, but inside there is only this gentle quietness, this sense of being held safely apart from the harsh world beyond these curved walls. The lamp flickers softly, casting moving shadows on the walls. The snow holds them all safely inside. The bodies begin to settle into positions for sleep. The night stretches endlessly ahead, but here, in their shelter of snow, warmth is possible, sleep is possible, survival is possible, as it has been for countless generations who learned this ancient knowledge of making the cold itself into sanctuary. The kudlik smokes, it glows, it sighs, it doesn't burn. In the blue-white interior of the snow shelter, where the walls curve overhead like the inside of an enormous shell. A small flame flickers with the steady patience of something that has burned in exactly this way for thousands of years. This is not the wild, crackling flame of wood burning in a fireplace. This is not the aggressive heat of coal or the quick brightness of paper catching fire. This is the cuddlic flame quiet, controlled and fed not by any growing thing, but by the rendered fat of animals that have themselves learned to survive in this land, where nothing burns except what has already lived and died in the cold. The woman who tends the flame sits cross-legged beside the shallow stone lamp, her position unchanged for the past hour. Her movements are minimal, economical, each adjustment to the wick or the fuel made with a precision that comes from understanding that this small flame represents the difference between life and death for everyone sleeping in the shelter. The lamp itself is a work of ancient craftsmanship, a shallow bowl carved from soap, with a curved lip that holds the wick and controls the size and shape of the flame. The stone is dark with age and use, stained by the countless nights when flames just like this one have burned in lamps just like this one, tended by women just like this one, in shelters just like this one, throughout the long Arctic night. The fuel that feeds the flame is seal oil-rich, thick fat that has been carefully rendered from the blubber of seals caught during the brief Arctic summer or the longer hunting season when the sea ice forms. Solid pathways to the breathing holes where seals must surface for air. This oil burns with a steady, smokeless flame that gives off both light and heat, but more importantly, it burns slowly and efficiently. A single seal can provide but enough oil to keep a lamp burning for many nights, and the flame itself produces no ash, no waste, nothing that needs to be removed from the shelter during the long hours when leaving the warmth. Inside, to dispose of refuse outside could mean death from exposure. The wick of the lamp is not made from cotton or any other plant material that might be available in warmer climates. Here, where no plants grow tall enough to provide fiber, the wick is made from Arctic cotton, the seed heads of a small plant that manages to grow in the brief Arctic summer. Its white, fluffy seed heads, perfect for drawing up the oil and controlling the burn rate of the flame. The woman adjusts the wick carefully, using a small pointed tool made of bone to push more of the cottony material into the oil or to pull it back, controlling the height and intensity of the flame with the same precision that a musician might use to tune an instrument. The flame itself is unlike any flame that burns in warmer climates. It is small, but intense, burning blue at its base where it meets the oil, yellow in its middle sections, and almost transparent at its tip. It produces very little smoke, just enough to create a faint haze near the top of the dome, where the curved walls carry the smoke up and away from the breathing space below. The heat it produces is not the quick, intense heat of a wood fire, but a steady, radiating warmth that gradually fills the enclosed space of the shelter and is held there by the insulating properties of the snow walls. Beside the lamp, within easy reach of the woman who tends it, are the supplies necessary to maintain the flame throughout the night. A small container made from a seal's stomach holds additional oil, ready to be poured into the lamp as the level drops. Another small container holds extra wick material, a collection of small tool scrapers made from bone, picks made from antler, small ladles carved from wood, drifted here from distant forests, are arranged in careful order, each one serving a specific purpose in the maintenance of the flame. The rhythm of tending the lamp is slow and meditative. Every few minutes, the woman checks the oil level, adding a small amount if necessary. Every quarter hour, she adjusts the wick, trimming away the charred portion or feeding more material into the flame. These adjustments are made without disrupting the sleep of the others in the shelter. Her movements are silent, practiced, automatic. She can maintain the flame in complete darkness, using touch and the sound of the burning oil to guide her adjustments. The light from the kudlik illuminates the faces of the sleeping family with a warm, golden glow that shifts and moves as the flame flickers. The child nearest to the lamp sleeps with his face turned toward the warmth, his breathing deep and regular. The old man at the back of the shelter appears to be carved from shadow and light, his weathered features softened by the gentle illumination. The hunter who sealed the entrance before lying down sleeps on his side, his back to the lamp, his body positioned to block any cold air that might seep through the entrance tunnel. But the lamp provides more than just light and heat. In the long Arctic night, when the sun does not rise for months at a time, this small flame becomes the center of the world. It defines day and night within the shelter, not by the presence or absence of sunlight, which may not be seen for weeks, but by the intensity of its burning. During the active hours, the flame burns higher and brighter. During the sleeping hours, it burns lower and steadier, providing just enough heat to maintain the temperature inside the shelter, and just enough light to allow the lamp tender to monitor the flame without waking the others. The oil burns with a distinctive scent, not unpleasant, but rich and fatty and unmistakably animal. This is the smell of survival in the Arctic, the smell that means warmth and life, and the difference between sleeping safely and freezing to death. Everyone in the shelter has grown up with this scent. It is associated with safety, with family, with the successful hunt that provided the seal whose fat now burns to keep them alive through another night. The children have fallen asleep to this scent every night of their lives. The adults remember their own parents tending lamps just like this one, higher or lower, adjusting itself to the changed conditions. The woman who tends the lamp can read these changes, understanding what they mean and responding with adjustments of her own. The skin around them once walked, now it breathes for them. In the soft glow of the seal oil lamp, the sleeping figures in the snow shelter are wrapped and covered in layers of fur and hide that once moved across this same Arctic landscape, following migration routes older than human memory, breathing the same cold air, surviving the same bitter winters through adaptations perfected over millions of years of evolution. Now these skins serve a different purpose, but one no less vital to survival. They have become the second layer of shelter, the insulation that keeps the heat generated by human bodies from escaping into the cold night air. the barrier between life and death that wraps around each sleeping person, like the embrace of the animals that once wore these furs. The child who sleeps closest to the lamp is wrapped in caribou fur, the hair dense and hollow, each strand a tiny air-filled tube that traps warm air close to his small body. This fur was taken from an animal that lived its entire life in temperatures far below freezing, whose body developed over countless generations the perfect insulation system for Arctic survival. The caribou's winter coat consists of two layers: a dense undercoat of fine, soft fur, close to the skin, and an outer layer of longer, coarser guard hairs that repel moisture and wind. Together, these layers create an insulation system so effective that caribou can sleep comfortably on the snow in temperatures that would kill an unprotected human in minutes. The woman who tends the lamp wears a parka made from multiple skins: caribou for the body, wolf fur around the hood, and waterproof sealskin for the outer layer that faces the weather. Each skin serves a specific purpose in the complex system of clothing that allows human survival in the Arctic. The caribou fur provides insulation, trapping warm air in the millions of tiny air pockets created by the dense hair. The wolf fur around the hood is arranged so that it creates a tunnel of air around her face when she pulls the hood up, warming the air she breathes and protecting her lungs from the shock of inhaling air that might be 60 degrees below zero. The sealskin outer layer repels moisture, both snow and rain, from outside, and water vapor from her breathing and perspiration inside. The old man at the back of the shelter sleeps under a massive bear hide, the fur thick and shaggy, silver-tipped and magnificent even in death. This hide came from a polar bear, an animal that spends its life on the sea ice, hunting seals through holes in the ice, sleeping on the frozen ocean surface in temperatures that would instantly freeze exposed human skin. The polar bear's fur is not just thick but specially adapted for Arctic survival. Each hair is hollow, creating thousands of tiny insulating air chambers, and the hair appears white but is actually transparent, allowing sunlight to reach the bear's black skin underneath, where it can be absorbed as heat. These are not simply warm coverings thrown over sleeping bodies. These are sophisticated survival systems, each piece of fur or hide carefully prepared and positioned according to knowledge passed down through generations of Arctic dwellers. The way the furs are layered, the direction in which the hair lies, the parts of the body that are covered more heavily than others. Every detail reflects centuries of accumulated wisdom about how human bodies lose heat, and how that heat loss can be minimized during the critical hours of sleep, when the body's own heat production naturally decreases. The hunter who sealed the entrance before lying down sleeps in clothing made primarily from sealskin, the fur on the inside against his skin, the smooth, waterproof exterior facing outward. Seal fur is shorter and denser than caribou fur, providing excellent insulation while also being naturally water-resistant. The seals that provided these skins lived their entire lives in the Arctic Ocean, diving beneath the ice to hunt fish, surfacing to breathe through holes they maintained in the ice by constant use. Their fur and blubber kept them warm in water that was below the freezing point of fresh water insulation, so effective that even in the icy ocean their body temperature remained constant. But the skins provide more than just insulation. They breathe not in the literal sense, but in the way they allow moisture to escape while preventing heat loss. Human bodies produce water vapor through breathing and perspiration, even during sleep, even in very cold conditions. If this moisture is trapped against the skin by waterproof coverings, it will make the insulation less effective, and can eventually lead to dangerous heat loss as the trapped moisture evaporates and cools. The animal skins used for Arctic clothing allow this moisture to pass through the fur and hide, carrying it away from the body while maintaining the insulating air layer that keeps the person warm. The arrangement of the sleeping bodies in the shelter takes advantage of the different insulating properties of different skins and furs. The child, whose small body produces less heat and loses heat faster because of his size, sleeps in the warmest spot and is wrapped in the finest, most insulating furs. The adults, who produce more body heat, sleep in positions where they can share that heat with the child and with each other, their larger bodies serving as heat sources for the smaller ones. The old man, whose aging body produces less heat than it did when he was younger, sleeps under the thickest furs and in the position within the shelter where the temperature is most stable. Each person sleeps not just in their own furs, but in a carefully arranged system of shared warmth. Bodies are positioned close enough together that heat from one person helps warm the others, but not so close that perspiration from one person creates moisture problems for another. The furs overlap and interconnect, creating a continuous insulating layer that covers the entire sleeping area. Cold spots where heat could escape are eliminated by the careful positioning of additional small furs and skins. The skins they sleep in have been prepared according to methods developed over thousands of years of Arctic survival. The tanning process uses the animal's own brain tissue to soften the hide while preserving its insulating properties. The fur is cleaned and combed to maintain its loft, ensuring that the tiny air pockets that provide insulation are not flattened or matted. Some skins are smoked to make them more resistant to moisture and to give them antiseptic properties that prevent bacterial growth during the long periods when washing is not possible. As the night progresses and the lamp burns lower, the temperature inside the shelter gradually decreases. But the carefully arranged furs and skins respond to this change, trapping the body heat more efficiently as the outside temperature drops. The hollow hairs of the polar bear fur, the dense undercoat of the caribou hide, the water-resistant properties of the seal skin, all of these natural adaptations continue to function exactly as they did when these animals were alive, protecting their human users with the same efficiency that once protected the animals themselves during their lifetimes in this harsh climate. The breathing of the sleeping people creates small amounts of water vapor that rise toward the top of the shelter, where they condense on the cold snow walls and run down harmlessly to the floor. But beneath the furs, the air remains warm and dry. The skins create individual microclimates around each sleeping person, maintaining a temperature that allows for deep, restorative sleep. Even as the Arctic wind howls outside the shelter and the temperature drops to levels that would be instantly fatal to an unprotected human. In the dim light of the cuddleic, the sleeping forms under their layers of fur look like a landscape unto themselves, hills and valleys of caribou and seal and bear, the furs rising and falling gently with the breathing of the sleepers. The animals that once wore these skins have become part of the human survival strategy, their own adaptations to Arctic life, now serving to keep their hunters alive through another night. The ancient relationship between predator and prey has evolved into something more complex, partnership in survival, where the death of the animal ensures the life of the human, and the human's survival ensures that the knowledge of how to hunt and use these animals will continue into the next generation. The furs breathe with them, insulate with them, warm with them through the long Arctic night. The skins that once protected animals from this same cold now protect the humans who sleep beneath them, wrapped in adaptations millions of years in the making, sheltered by the evolutionary wisdom of creatures that learned to thrive in the harshest climate on Earth. If you move, you lose heat, so they stay and breathe slowly. In the blue-white dome of snow, where the air is warmed by the steady flame of the seal oil lamp and the collective body heat of several people, a profound stillness settles over the sleeping forms. This is not the restless stillness of people trying to fall asleep in comfortable beds, shifting and adjusting until they find the right position. This is the deliberate, practiced stillness of people who have learned through generations of Arctic survival that every unnecessary movement costs precious heat, that survival through the long night depends not on restless activity, but on the disciplined conservation of energy and warmth. The old man at the back of the shelter has not moved for over an hour. His breathing is slow and deep, each exhale creating a small cloud of water vapor that rises quickly and dissipates in the cold air above the furs that cover him. His body lies in the position he chose when he first settled down for the night on his side. Knees slightly drawn up, arms pulled close to his chest, minimizing the surface area of his body that is exposed to the air. This is not coincidence. This is the sleeping position that human bodies naturally adopt in cold conditions. The fetal position that reduces heat loss by decreasing the amount of skin surface that comes in contact with the cold air. The woman who tends the lamp moves only when necessary to adjust, to wick, to add a few drops of oil, to check the flame that provides their only source of heat and light. Each of her movements is slow and deliberate, planned and economical. When she reaches for the oil container, she does so without lifting her torso from the warm nest of furs where she lies. When she adjusts the wick, she uses only her fingers and hand, keeping her arm close to her body. She has learned, as all Arctic peoples have learned, that every movement generates air currents that can carry warm air away from the body and bring cold air into contact with the skin. This knowledge of stillness as a survival technique goes back thousands of years. passed down through generations of people who lived through Arctic winters, without any source of heat except what their bodies could generate and what could be provided by small flames burning animal fat. The children learn this stillness before they are old enough to understand the science behind it. They learn it by watching the adults, by sleeping next to adults who remain motionless through the night, by experiencing for themselves how much warmer they stay when they resist the urge to toss and turn. The hunter who sealed the entrance tunnel has positioned himself carefully between the entrance and the rest of the family. His back is to the entrance, his body serving as an additional barrier against any cold air that might seep through the tunnel. He sleeps on his side, his knees drawn up, his arms folded across his chest. His breathing is so quiet and regular that he might appear to be unconscious rather than asleep. But this is the breathing pattern that conserves the most heat-slow, deep breaths, that warm the incoming cold air gradually in the lungs, and release the outgoing air slowly, so that its heat is not lost too quickly. The child wrapped in caribou fur has naturally assumed the position that conserves the most heat for his small body. Children lose heat faster than adults because they have a larger surface area relative to their body mass, but they also generate heat faster, and their bodies are naturally more flexible, allowing them to curl into tight balls that minimize heat loss. His breathing is faster than the adults, but just as regular, just as unconsciously controlled by the need to conserve warmth. Between the sleeping bodies, the air is layered in temperature gradients. The warmest air rises to the top of the dome, where it spreads along the curved ceiling before cooling and sinking back down the walls. The coldest air settles at floor level, particularly near the entrance tunnel. Each person sleeps in the layer of air that their body heat has warmed, and their stillness ensures that this warm air is not displaced by movement, that bring cold air into contact with their skin. This stillness is not just physical, but mental. The art of sleeping warmly in the Arctic requires a kind of meditation, a letting go of the restless thoughts and anxieties that can cause people to move and shift in their sleep. The people sleeping in the snow shelter have learned to sink into sleep the way they sink into the warm furs that cover them completely without reservation, trusting their bodies to maintain warmth through the night without conscious effort. The psychological aspect of this survival technique is as important as the physical aspects. Fear and anxiety increase metabolic rate, causing the body to burn through its energy reserves faster and requiring more food to maintain body temperature. They also cause restless movement, tossing and turning that disrupts the carefully maintained warm air layers around the sleeping body. The deep, peaceful sleep of the Arctic peoples is not just the result of exhaustion from the day's work of survival, it is a learned skill, a survival technique that must be mastered as surely as the techniques of building snow shelters or maintaining oil lamps. The breathing patterns of the sleeping family are synchronized not by conscious effort, but by the shared rhythm of survival. Each person breathes slowly and deeply, warming the incoming air in their lungs, extracting as much oxygen as possible from each breath, releasing the exhaled air gradually so that its heat is not wasted. The sound of their breathing creates a gentle rhythm that fills the shelter, not loud enough to disturb anyone's sleep, but present enough to provide the unconscious reassurance that everyone is alive, everyone is breathing, everyone is maintaining the life functions that will carry them through until dawn. As the night deepens and the temperature outside continues to drop, the stillness inside the shelter becomes even more profound. Bodies that might have shifted position during the warmer, early evening now remain motionless for hours at a time. The old man's breathing becomes so slow and deep that long minutes pass between his exhales. The woman tending the lamp moves only when absolutely necessary, and then with movements so small and controlled that they barely disturb the air around her. This stillness is not uncomfortable. It is not the forced immobility of someone trying not to move despite discomfort. It is the natural stillness of bodies that have found their most comfortable, most heat-conserving position, and have settled into it completely. The furs and skins underneath them have molded to their bodies, creating custom-fitted insulation that works most effectively when it is not disturbed by movement. The air layers around them have stratified into the most efficient temperature gradients. Moving would disrupt these carefully established systems of warmth conservation. In warmer climates, people move in their sleep to regulate temperature, pushing off blankets when they become too warm, pulling them closer when they cool down. But in the Arctic shelter, there is no such luxury. The temperature regulation must be achieved not through movement but through stillness, not through adding or removing coverings, but through positioning the body to make the most efficient use of whatever warmth is available. The discipline of this stillness extends beyond the sleeping hours. During the waking hours in the shelter, movements are also careful and considered. People sit or lie in positions that conserve heat. They avoid unnecessary gestures or actions that would stir up the air and disrupt the temperature layers. Even conversation, when it occurs, is conducted in quiet voices that do not require energetic breathing or dramatic gestures. This is the ancient wisdom of Arctic survival, that in the battle against cold movement is often the enemy, that warmth is conserved not through activity but through stillness, that survival sometimes requires not fighting against the environment but accepting it, working with it, finding ways to live within its constraints rather than trying to overcome them through force or energy expenditure. The bodies lie still. The breath rises slowly. The heat stays close to the skin where it belongs. And in their profound, disciplined stillness, wrapped in by the furs of animals that knew these same survival techniques, the sleeping family maintains the warmth that will carry them safely through another Arctic night. The cold stays, the breath rises, the world fades, and the dream begins. In the depths of the Arctic winter, when the sun has not appeared above the horizon for weeks, and will not appear for weeks more to come, the boundary between night and day dissolves into something more fluid, more fundamental than the rising and setting of the sun. Here in the snow, shelter, where time is measured not by the passage of light and darkness, but by the rhythm of breathing. The burning of oil, the gradual cooling and warming cycles of the small, enclosed space. Sleep becomes something different from what it is in lands where night lasts only a few hours and day always returns with the dawn. The lamp continues to burn, its flame steady and patient, casting the same golden glow it has maintained for hours. But now, in the deepest part of the night, when the cold outside has reached its most bitter intensity, the light seems different, softer, more ethereal, as if it were not just illuminating the curved walls of snow, but penetrating into some deeper realm, where the normal rules of wakefulness and sleep no longer apply. The woman who tends the lamp has entered a state that is neither fully awake nor fully asleep. Her body maintains the automatic responses necessary to keep the flame burning, adjusting the wick and adding oil as needed. But her consciousness has drifted into the timeless space that Arctic peoples have learned to inhabit during the long polar nights. This is the season when sleep becomes not just a daily necessity, but a way of existing, a method of surviving through months when the external world offers little distinction between one day and the next. The old man at the back of the shelter breathes so slowly and deeply that his sleep resembles the hibernation of animals, not the complete cessation of activity. That true hibernation involves but a profound slowing down of all metabolic processes, a conservation of energy that allows life to continue when the external environment provides little support for active existence. The hunter near the entrance has entered dreams that are indistinguishable from memories. Visions of summer hunting when the sun stayed above the horizon for months at a time and the tundra bloomed with flowers and swarmed with insects and migrating birds. In his dream, he walks across land that is green and soft underfoot, following caribou, herds that move like rivers of brown and white fur across landscapes that stretch endlessly under a sun that never sets. But even in the dream, he knows that this warmth and abundance is temporary, that the winter will return, that survival depends on the knowledge and preparation that must be accumulated during the brief season of plenty. The child wrapped in caribou fur dreams the dreams of children who have grown up in the Arctic dreams, where the cold is not an enemy to be feared, but a companion to be understood, where the snow and ice are not barriers, but pathways, where the animals that provide food and clothing and shelter materials are not distant creatures, but intimate partners in the dance of survival. His small body generates its own warmth under the carefully arranged furs, and his breathing remains steady and deep even as his mind travels through landscapes of ice and aurora, following dream paths that his ancestors have walked for thousands of years. But these are not ordinary dreams, not the random electrical activity of brains processing the day's experiences. These are the dreams of people whose survival depends on a deep, intuitive understanding of their environment, whose sleeping minds continue to work through the complex relationships between weather patterns, animal behavior, ice conditions, and the subtle signs that indicate when and where food can be found. In sleep, their minds process information that their conscious awareness might miss the meaning of changes in wind direction, the significance of cloud formations, the implications of animal tracks seen days ago, but only now understood in the deeper wisdom that comes with dreaming. The woman who tends the lamp dreams of seals, but not the seals she has seen during waking hours. These are the seals of the dream world, seals that speak in voices like wind across ice, that tell her where the breathing holes will open when the ice shifts, that show her the places where the hunting will be good when the long night finally ends. Her hands continue their automatic care of the flame, while her mind travels beneath the ice, swimming with the seals through the dark water under the frozen ocean, learning the secrets that can only be learned when the conscious mind stops trying to control and understand everything. In the deepest part of the night, when the cold outside has reached temperatures that would kill within minutes any creature not perfectly adapted to Arctic survival, the people in the shelter exist in a state that transcends ordinary sleep. Their bodies continue the basic functions of life: breathing, circulating blood, generating heat, but at a rate so slow and efficient that they barely disturb the carefully maintained warm air layers around them. Their minds drift through landscapes of memory and possibility, processing the accumulated knowledge of generations, while their bodies rest and conserve energy for the challenges that the next day will bring. This is the ancient rhythm of Arctic survival, older than agriculture, older than cities, older than any way of life that depends on external sources of heat and light. For thousands of years, people have survived the polar night by learning to exist in this space between waking and sleeping, between active engagement with the world and passive endurance of conditions too harsh for normal activity. They have learned to trust their bodies to maintain life, while their consciousness travels through the dream, realms that connect them to their ancestors, to their environment, and to the deep sources of knowledge that cannot be accessed through ordinary waking awareness. The flame in the lamp burns lower now, but it does not die. The oil continues to feed it, drop by drop, and the wick continues to draw the fuel upward to meet the waiting air. The light it casts has become even softer, even more golden, illuminating the sleeping forms with a glow that seems to come from within the furs themselves, as if the spirits of the animals that once wore these skins were adding their own warmth to the warmth of the human bodies they now protect. Outside the shelter, the aurora borealis may be dancing across the star-filled sky, sheets of green and gold and purple light flickering and flowing, bend patterns that follow the Earth's magnetic field lines. But inside the shelter there is no awareness of this celestial display. The sleeping family exists in their own small universe, bounded by walls of snow, warmed by animal fat and body heat, protected by knowledge and skills that have been refined through countless generations of Arctic nights, just like this one. The old man's breathing becomes so slow that long minutes pass between each exhale and inhale. His body has entered the deepest phase of sleep, the phase where healing occurs, where memories are consolidated, where the day's experiences are integrated into the larger pattern of knowledge and experience that guides survival decisions. His dreams are not of places, poor events, but of sensations, the feeling of ice underfoot that indicates safe walking, the sound of wind that suggests weather changes, the scent in the air that means seals are near their breathing holes. As the night reaches its deepest point, the distinction between individual consciousness and collective survival begins to blur. The family sleeps not as separate individuals, but as a single organism, sharing warmth, sharing air, sharing the fundamental life processes that keep them all alive. Their breathing synchronizes not through conscious effort, but through the deeper rhythms that connect all living things. Their dreams begin to overlap, creating shared visions of the summer that will eventually return, of the hunting that will resume when the long night ends, of the continuation of life through another cycle of seasons. The child's dreams are the deepest and most vivid, filled with colors that exist nowhere in the winter landscape, the green of summer grass, the brown of caribou fur, the blue of open water under summer skies. But even in these dreams of warmth and plenty, he understands instinctively that survival depends on preparation, on storing food and fuel and knowledge against the return of cold and darkness. His small body continues to generate heat under the caribou fur, and his breathing remains steady and peaceful, even as his mind travels through the mythical landscapes, where animals speak and the spirits of ancestors provide guidance for the living. The woman who tends the lamp exists in a state of consciousness that allows her to maintain the flame, while also participating in the collective, dreaming of the group. Her body responds automatically to the needs of the lamp, adjusting the wick when the flame begins to flicker, adding oil. When the level drops to lowbot, her awareness has joined the shared dreamscape, where individual identity merges with the larger patterns of survival and adaptation that have sustained human life in the Arctic for thousands of years. In this deepest part of the night, when the cold outside could kill in minutes and the warmth inside depends entirely on the careful balance of human body heat, animal insulation, and the steady flame of rendered fat, sleep becomes a form of hibernation, a way of existing that requires almost no energy while still maintaining the essential life functions. People in the shelter breathe together, dream together, exist together in the space between consciousness and unconsciousness, where survival is not a struggle but a form of meditation, a letting go into the deeper rhythms that connect human life to the life of the animals, whose furs warm them and whose oil feeds their flame. The night stretches endlessly ahead, but time has lost its urgency herein. The snow shelter. There is only the breathing, the warmth, the gentle flicker of the flame, and the dreams that carry the sleeping family through the hours until the first hint of dawn begins to lighten the Arctic sky. But dawn is still many hours away, and for now there is only this profound peace, this trust in the ancient knowledge that has sustained human life in the harshest climate on Earth. The lamp flickers, but holds steady. The snow walls maintain their insulating embrace. The furs continue to trap the precious warmth close to sleeping bodies. The breath rises slowly, carrying with it the dreams and prayers of people who have learned to live in harmony with cold and darkness, who have discovered that survival is not always about fighting, play against the environment, but sometimes about surrendering to it, accepting it, finding ways to exist within its constraints with grace and patience, and profound trust in the accumulated wisdom of thousands of years of human adaptation. The cold stays, as it always has and always will. The breath rises, carrying life and warmth and dreams toward the curved ceiling of snow. The world outside fades into irrelevance as the world inside becomes everything: warm, safe, sufficient, complete, and sleep, deep and healing, and touched with the dreams of ancestors, continues through the long Arctic night, sustaining life until the sun returns to begin another cycle of survival. Another season of the ancient dance between human ingenuity and the eternal, patient power of the polar cold. After the breath, after the flame, after everything but the snow. In the space after sleep has taken them completely, in the hours when even dreams have faded into something deeper than memory, there is only the silence. Not the empty silence of absence, but the full silence of presence, the silence of snow walls that have forgotten they were once wind and storm, the silence of air that has warmed and stilled and settled into layers of peace, the silence of breathing so deep and slow that it becomes indistinguishable from the patience of ice itself. The flame in the cuddleic burns smaller now, smaller and steadier. A single point of gold in the blue-white world of the shelter. It no longer flickers. It no longer dances. It simply is, existing in the space between burning and not burning, between light and darkness, between the presence of heat and its absence. The oil feeds it drop by drop, but even this feeding has become so gradual, so gentle, that it seems less like consumption than like breathing. The lamp breathing oil, the oil breathing flame, the flame breathing light into the curved space where time has stopped moving forward and has settled into the eternal present of survival. The woman who tends the lamp no longer moves at all. Her hand rests near the wick, but it has been motionless for so long that it seems to have become part of the lamp itself. Another component of the ancient technology that transforms fat into warmth, darkness into light, cold into the possibility of continuing life. Her breathing has synchronized not just with the others in the shelter, but with the rhythm of the flame itself. Each slow exhale matching the gentle pulse of combustion. Each inhale drawing in air that has been warmed by the same heat that has warmed her ancestors for countless generations. Around her, the other bodies have settled into such profound stillness that they no longer seem separate from the furs that cover them. The caribou hide rises and falls with breathing so slow that minutes pass between each movement. The bear fur shifts imperceptibly with the circulation of air so gentle that it disturbs nothing, changes nothing, simply continues the ancient pattern of warm air rising, cooling, settling, rising again in the endless cycle that maintains life in the space between the snow walls. The old man at the back of the shelter has entered a state of rest so complete that he seems to have become part of the shelter itself. His body no longer generates heat so much as it conserves heat, holds heat, becomes a reservoir of warmth that feeds back into the collective pool of life's sustaining temperature that fills the small dome. His breathing comes, perhaps once each minute, each exhale so slow and controlled that it releases warmth gradually, efficiently, without waste. His dreams, if they can still be called dreams, are of silence itself, the silence of summer when the sun never sets. But the world is so vast and empty that sound itself becomes meaningless. The silence of winter when even the wind eventually grows tired and lets the world rest in perfect crystalline quiet. The child wrapped in caribou fur has become so still that the fur itself seems to breathe for him. His small body generates just enough heat to maintain the warmth within his cocoon of skin and hair. Each strand of caribou fur holding its microscopic pocket of warm air. Millions of these tiny chambers creating an insulation system so perfect that his body heat, carefully conserved, carefully contained, is sufficient to sustain him through the endless night. His breathing is barely perceptible, but it continues, steady and automatic. The fundamental rhythm of life continuing even as consciousness has faded into something deeper than sleep, deeper than dreams, deeper than any state that has a name. The hunter near the entrance has become a guardian of stillness, his body positioned between the cold of the outside world and the warmth of the interior space, but no longer actively protecting so much as simply existing as part of the barrier between life and death, between warmth and cold, between the human space and the vast indifference of the Arctic night. His sealskin clothing has molded to his body, becoming a second skin that breathes with him, insulates with him, maintains the precise temperature that allows life to continue without struggle, without effort, without any expenditure of energy beyond the basic metabolic requirements of existence itself. The silence within the shelter has weight now, presence, substance. It is not the silence of empty space, but the silence of space that is completely filled with warm air, with the scent of burning oil, with the almost inaudible sound of slow breathing, with the invisible presence of life maintaining itself through the darkest hours of the Arctic night. This silence holds them all, contains them, protects them as surely as the snow walls and the animal furs, creating an environment where survival requires nothing more than the simple continuation of being. Above their heads, the curved ceiling of snow continues its ancient work of insulation. Each block of snow, cut with such precision hours ago, has settled into its position in the dome, locked in place by the pressure of all the other blocks, creating a structure that is both strong and flexible, both protective and permeable. The snow itself has become warmer now, not from any external heat source, but from the gradual warming that occurs when snow is cut and stacked and allowed to settle. The interior surface of each block has developed a thin glaze of ice, smooth and impermeable, that prevents moisture from their breathing from being absorbed into the snow. and that reflects their body heat back down into the living space below. The entrance tunnel, carved downward and then up into the shelter, has become a perfect airlock, maintaining the temperature differential between. Be inside and outside without any need for a door, without any mechanism more complex than the simple physics of warm air rising and cold air sinking. Cold air from outside cannot flow up through the tunnel into the shelter. Warm air from inside cannot flow down and out. The design that seemed so simple when it was being built has revealed its true sophistication in the deep hours of the night when survival depends on the conservation of every degree of heat, every breath of warm air. The temperature inside the shelter has stabilized at a level that would seem impossibly cold to people accustomed to heated buildings. But here, in this context, it represents the perfect balance between the heat generated by their bodies and the insulating capacity of their shelter and clothing. It is not warm, but it is warm enough. It is not comfortable by the standards of warmer climates, but it is the temperature of survival, the temperature that allows life to continue through the long Arctic night without exhausting the body's reserves of energy. In this profound stillness, time has lost all meaning. There are no clocks in the shelter, no way to measure the passage of hours except by the gradual consumption of oil in the lamp and the imperceptible changes in the breathing patterns of the sleepers. But even these changes occur so slowly that they might as well be eternal. The flame burns with the patience of geological time. The breathing continues with the rhythm of seasons. The warmth holds with the constancy of ice itself. The silence contains everything now, the sounds that are not made, all the movements that do not occur, all the heat that is not lost to the cold outside. It contains the sound of wind that does not penetrate the shelter, the sound of cold that does not touch the sleeping bodies, the sound of time that has stopped flowing in the ordinary way and is pooled herein. This small dome like water in a still pond, present and deep and undisturbed by any current. This is the silence that holds them, not empty space, but full space, not absence, but presence, not the end of sound, but the beginning of something deeper than sound. It is the silence that connects them to all the others who have slept in shelters like this one, who have survived nights like this one, who have learned that in the deepest cold, survival sometimes means becoming so still that you become part of the stillness itself, so quiet that you become part of the quiet, so peaceful that peace becomes not something you achieve, but something you are. The lamp flame grows smaller, but it does not die. The breathing grows slower, but it does not stop. The warmth holds steady, sufficient, complete. The snow walls continue their patient work of protection. The firs continue their ancient function of insulation. The silence continues to hold them all in its invisible embrace, maintaining the space where life can continue, where survival can occur without struggle, where sleep can deepen into something that approaches the hibernation of animals, the dormancy of plants, the patient endurance of ice waiting for spring. In this silence they are held. In this stillness they are sustained. In this warmth, carefully conserved and perfectly maintained, They continue through another Arctic night, breathing slowly, dreaming softly, existing in the space between waking and sleeping, where survival becomes not an effort but a form of meditation, not a struggle but a kind of prayer, offered to the cold and darkness that surround them, offered to the ancient knowledge that shelters them, offered to the silence that holds them all until the light returns.